Believe it or not, the 60 to 64. Hard to believe, but that's the one I'm in. Got into triathlon a bit by accident. In 2001, a good friend of mine, a work colleague, suggested I did the corporate triathlon. I said to him, I can't swim. He said, look, it's 400 metres, anyone can swim 400 metres. So I went along to our local pool here in Toowoomba and I proved to him that I actually couldn't swim, hanging off the lane rope after 35 metres. That end of the pool was actually fairly deep, so it was the one I didn't drown. But nevertheless, that was the beginning of it. And 6 weeks later, I did the corporate triathlon on the Gold Coast and got me hooked. Well, my preferred distance, I think probably my best distance is probably around half Ironman, but my preferred distance is the full Ironman. I think that it is my nature that I just like the whole process of preparing for an Ironman, setting the plan in place, executing that plan, turning up on the day knowing that you're on your own, and whatever unfolds during the day is what makes it exciting for me. So that's my preferred distance. I've always been involved in sport at school. Believe it or not, considering how inflexible I am now, gymnastics was my main sport. But I also played football, soccer, played for school and competed in cross country and track during the summer. So I've always been involved in sport. There's been so many. I think probably the first one would be my first Ironman in Foster in 2003. Having not been a swimmer, as you heard before, I wasn't sure I'd actually make it through the swim, but it was a wetsuit swim, so luckily I did. And throughout the entire day, I was never sure that I'd actually finish. And I just remember 3 or 4 kilometres from the finish in the run, just having this huge smile on my face, thinking, geez, I'm actually going to do this. And I finished in a pretty reasonable time, and that continued to get me hooked. Other than that, I've been lucky enough to compete in a few different world championships. I went over to the Ironman 70.3 in Clearwater, Florida in 2007, which was my first world championships, and had a fantastic day. Did 4 hours 39, came inside the top 20, and that was a huge buzz as well. But there's way too many to mention. Every race is special in its own way, even the bad ones. I have from time to time. The most recent coach I've used is Adam Gordon from the Gold Coast, who is really excellent. I tend to have a coach for a while and then do my own thing for a while, but eventually you always go back to a coach just to reset, just to fix some things you're not doing. We're very good at giving other people advice, but sometimes pretty ordinary at following it ourselves. So sometimes I think it's good to just get someone to be that voice of sanity so you don't overdo it or underdo it. Week prior to taper, it depends what the event is. If it's a shorter event, I usually only have about a week taper. If it's an Ironman, I start cutting back from about 4 weeks out. The week prior to an event is really, really light, just short sessions, just to fire things up, but just to keep the body moving. I found out over time that rest doesn't suit me. If I rest, I feel that I feel a little lethargic, so I have to keep myself moving during race week, including the day before. No, not really. I'm a pretty relaxed sort of person normally. I find that I'm really comfortable leading up to an event, except for Ironman in particular, where I find about midday the day before I tend to shut down. My wife reckons that's it, I'll just leave him alone for the next period of time. I've become incoherent. I'm not able to do simple tasks. I need to be followed up to make sure I don't forget anything. So I think that's just the body's way of focusing, knowing that the next day is going to require a fair amount of concentration. Just to relax, really. I don't have any. I tend to try and look after myself a little bit after the event, but what I do try to do is actually give back to the family, particularly if we've been away. And the last few days before an event, it's not much of a holiday for the family, so I tend to try and be with them as much as I can afterwards and just relax and enjoy myself and live like a normal person. Recently I did the Olympic distance age group world championships on the Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago. That's the second time I've been fortunate enough to participate in that. I also did it in 2009. It was tough qualifying this time. There was a lot of competition. I was really pleased to make the team. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a hamstring tendon issue about 6 weeks out, which restricted my running. But other than that, I still had a pretty good day. Came around the top 30, and it was a fantastic event to be part of. Well, I've recently retired, although my wife doesn't like the idea of that retirement, so hopefully I'll be doing some things in the future. But the next 6 months is really, or next 6 to 8 months is really going to be about Ironman. I've got 3 scheduled in: Busselton in December, Ironman New Zealand in Taupo in early March, and then I'm really hoping to have a really good go at Cairns in June with a shot at trying to make it back to Kona. I was fortunate enough to go to Kona in 2013 under a legacy slot. A really, really tough day, humbling day, and I'd really like to qualify and go back and enjoy the experience again. Both, because I didn't enjoy the experience as much before. I mean, a really humbling day. Everything you hear about Kona, I must admit, turning on the bike at Harvey at 100k thinking, I don't know what people are talking about, this isn't that hard, and then grovelling back into town after riding 2 hours into a wind was humbling. Finishing 2 hours slower than I'd ever finished before, but nonetheless, running along Elite Drive, which was not probably about the most running I did for the whole thing, still was a fantastic experience, but I'd love to go back and do it again. I do in triathlon. I follow a lot of different athletes, but in triathlon, I've always followed the career of Chris McCormack and Craig Alexander, and all the ones that went before that. People like Greg Welch, I read his book. Of the current crop, Jan Frodeno, Daniela Reef is an absolute amazing athlete to follow there. All of those people I find are inspirational, and it's good to test yourself out against that. Mostly with family. Training does take up a fair amount of time. Other than that, I'm an absolute rock music freak, so I follow a lot of rock bands. Looking forward to seeing the Scorpions and Def Leppard in November coming up soon, and I read a lot of autobiographies as well. We've recently become grandparents, so that's taken up a bit of time. We've got our first grandchild, and that's exciting as well. The pros of training in Toowoomba, I think, is that we've got a really great community here. So everyone that does triathlon, you pretty much know who most of the people are. There's some good little groups going around. There's a good tri-club in Toowoomba. And the other benefit is that we can get out of town onto some fairly quiet country roads. Road surface not so great, but not a lot of traffic, and you can do really big loops which gets you away from home, so you have to complete the loop without a lot of traffic, and that's good. Probably the only downside is that, and it's not necessarily a downside, it's really hilly up here and really windy, so whenever we go to a race and it's windy and people are whining, we don't worry so much, but it's pretty much every ride here. So really the only downside is the lack of open water swimming, no beach, stuff like that, but it's a small price to pay to be in the environment we've got here. We're very lucky really to train in a place like this.